I'm back at our Wither Skeleton farm from last episode. No, I haven't put any more time into gathering skulls, but I am feeling a lot more optimistic about this place after reading a lot of your comments and feedback. A lot of great ideas I don't know why I didn't think of. From much easier methods to getting wither roses to building a platform 24 blocks up. I could stand on and wait for wither skeletons to spawn rather than having to keep flying away and flying back. I really had a good time reading what everyone had to say. As for this episode, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. I've already got some signs up in the project cube, throwback to episode 6, of what we're going to be doing, and the general tasks we've got to complete this episode, although already I can feel I'm in one of those moods where I'm going to be going overboard. And that is to make a cactus farm, a huge cactus farm, and it's something that's going to be really helpful moving forward because it's going to give us both unlimited access to green dye and bone meal, things I know I'm going to need in large quantities for future projects I can only imagine at this point in time, especially bone meal. For the location of the farm, I picked an area in the desert, not for any particular reason other than it fits the theme of the cactus farm and that the terrain wouldn't be as hard to flatten, so I suppose I did have some particular reasons. And what does any cactus farm need to work? Cactus, obviously. It's a prickly subject and the plan was to gather a load of them to build up several layers of the farm, have them planted and producing further cacti as we expand the farm, because I can tell you now for a fact all of the cacti within this desert are going to be nowhere near enough to supply the size of the farm I'd like to build. It was important I got them on the go as soon as possible. Then as we add layers to the farm we will be producing more cacti and that will build up to ridiculous amounts over time and we'll never run out. It's the same design I'd used in my melon series, very simple and ridiculously easy to make, except it had been a while so I was going slow at the start to refresh my memory, and like the farm in my melon series, it's going to be massive. In fact, I want it to be even larger. The block of choice was chiseled stone bricks, so no melons in this video, for no other reason than it's really easy to get a hold of in large quantities because of all our masons at the trade hall, and we're going to need massive quantities for what we've got planned. Turned out my memory wasn't so bad. It was easy enough to build. This was the first layer of a tower that's going to consist of numerous layers. I'm going to be building 16 cacti per layer and at least 20 layers high, and even once it's built up it will only be a small percentage of the actual farm. That's how large the entire farm is going to be, which is exactly what we want. Now I'm going to need to have a storage area underneath the farm. I'm not sure how I want to go about it, but at the moment if I just get a single hopper and a large chest set up, cactus can at least be collected as I ponder the options. And as said before, seeing as I'm going to be needing loads of cactus for supplying the rest of the farm, it's best I get collecting the stuff as soon as possible. After this it was simply a case of building up layers one at a time. I had all of the materials with me to build the tower as high as I wanted. After a while I got into a good rhythm. It was great because I knew every additional layer we added to the farm more cactus would be able to be collected, which we could use to supply further layers we would build, which would then produce even more cactus. It was a compounding effect. In the end I went with 30 layers for the height. That's a lot of cactus. With 16 per layer, we're looking at 480 cactus planted. Okay, so is that it? Farm complete? Time to move on? You have got to be joking. You'd think it'd be enough for a solo player such as myself in a solo world, but I can tell you now it's not. The problem is the rates of cactus produced. You see, in the time we spent making these 30 layers of the farm, which translates to not running at full capacity because it wasn't fully built and its rates were only increasing as I added more layers, we got close to 10 stacks of cactus. What's the issue? Well, viewer, the issue is those almost 10 stacks of cactus will not equate to almost 10 stacks of bone meal. No, we're looking at this composting down to about 3/4 of a stack of bone meal, and even if at full production the tower produces, let's say, 30 stacks in the same amount of time it took to build the tower, there's still only about 2¼ stacks of bone meal at the end. Not great. So while it's good for cacti and I suppose green dye if we get the right smelting array set up, for bone meal, one of the primary reasons I'm building the farm in the first place, is going to require a lot of AFK work for large quantities, and that's not good. Not when a lot of my AFK time is spent at the creeper farm building up our gunpowder supplies, which by the way has been growing very nicely. So the question now is how many of these 30 layered cactus towers do we want to build? Obviously the more we have, the less AFK work we have to do. I opted for 100 towers total. Overkill? Absolutely not when I'm trying to eliminate massive AFK sessions. Although I'll admit, when you look at the amount of floor space the towers are going to be taking up, it does look overkill, but like I said, I can assure you it's not. The cactus farm in the melon series was massive, and this one is going to be several times as large, but we've got big things planned for this world, and when you've got big things planned, you need to build big. And it wasn't my first rodeo, so I was better prepared for what lay in store, because I knew this project wasn't for the weak-willed. Now, unlike what I did for the single tower we'd already built, I'm not going to be building the rest of the farm that way. That would massively lengthen the time it would take. No, with a project on this scale, it's better to focus on one material at a time before moving on to the next. In this instance, we're going to be first focusing on getting all of the chiseled stone bricks in place, and before we could get all of those bricks into place, we were going to use only a percentage of them outlining the 100 individual cactus cells for each of the 30 layers, and that's going to mean a heck of a lot of bridging, which is going to mean a heck of a lot of sneaking, and there's no way I'm doing that under normal circumstances, no way. I'd showed our new wither skeleton farm at the start of the episode, and from our bonus episode I'd gotten a lot more wither heads and a few nether stars from summoning and killing the wither, giving us access to more beacon blocks we could put around the build. I opted for speed 2, it's going to be a game changer. I tried it out briefly when placing glass at the project cube last episode, and it was a revolutionary discovery. That's not an exaggeration either, it doubles or triples the speed we could place blocks when bridging, and when it's going to take a lot of hours to do, cutting that time in half or less is more than worth having. Just thinking about doing this without a beacon assist makes me feel nauseous. Going back to what I was saying before about outlining the towers and individual cactus cells, I'm clueless in the realm of estimation of the amount of chiseled stone bricks needed, and keeping tabs on how much we go through during this outlining stage will be a big indication of how much we're going to be looking at total. I'm thinking probably about 4 to 5 times the amount we use for the outline. At least the tower we have in place is now producing and collecting cactus for when we need 47,520 cactus remaining to be placed. That's something to feel good about. It's going to be a monumental task getting this done, no doubt about it, but it really will be worth it in the long run. That's what I'm telling myself, because if I don't, there's no way I'm going to have the motivation to build this. Now began the grind. There wasn't going to be much in the way of variation when it came to the outlining of each layer, because every layer required the same amount of work and was no different than any of the other layers. It was simply a case of sitting at my computer and placing the thousands of chiseled stone bricks I had, and yet I knew what I had wouldn't get me very far. I don't know how far I was expecting to get with 6 shulkers worth of blocks, but I definitely thought it would be further than this. It's kind of disheartening to see, because it doesn't take a genius to realise we're going to have to collect a lot of chiseled stone bricks just to do the outline, and then the mind wanders to how many more blocks we're going to need to fill in this bloody outline. Back at the trade hall, I was putting in a large restocking session. Chiseled stone bricks are cheap, one of the reasons I'd wanted to use them, and easy for us to get in large quantities. It's 16 emeralds per stack of bricks, so I wasn't going to go broke. Or that's what I thought, because after seeing how far those 6 shulkers had gotten us, this time I was going to need to buy a lot more, like a lot more. I'm talking refilling those now empty 6 shulkers that were slotted into my ender chest, plus any additional shulkers I'd be able to fit into my free inventory space on me. So while at the start I thought it was an affordable block, because of the quantity we were purchasing, my stock of emeralds were taking a hit. I'm glad I've been regularly trading with the villagers in between episodes to keep our money high, and again, this is just for the outline of the farm. When it comes to filling in the rest of the farm with these, we're going to be spending some serious money. But it's not going to stop the build, it's simply a bridge we'll cross when we come to it. It took a long time to buy the blocks, but as well as the 6 shulkers in my ender chest, we filled an additional 27 shulkers that would be able to fit into my inventory. For any of you good at maths, you'll know that's 33 shulkers total we have to play with, and we'd see how far they'd get us. A bit of time had passed since buying the chiseled stone bricks from the villagers up until what you're seeing now, and already I'd used a lot of them. From the look of things, I most likely would have enough to complete the outline. A big relief. I was surprised how high up the beacon's prowess reached. I'd only been expecting 50 blocks upwards, but when I got to the 20th layer with a 4 block gap in between layers, I started to question that, because I would be 80 blocks off the ground. Taking into account the few blocks of height the beacon composed of, that the beacon block sat atop, and I was still way beyond 50 blocks away. Maybe there's not a limit to height, as long as it's above the beacon because the beam travels to the sky. I'm guessing then there's still a 50 block limit if we went below the beacon? I don't know, I wasn't complaining, because I'd been expecting to have to rebuild them further up once I hit a certain height, but apparently it doesn't seem to be the case. A slight time skip again, I died. I wasn't filming at the time because all of the footage was the same and didn't see any reason in clogging up gigabytes upon gigabytes of storage on my computer just placing chiseled stone brick blocks. But there we go. How did I die? A creeper blew me up, go figure, and I was surprised to find hundreds of chickens at spawn. I guess this is where all the chickens went when they escaped my wither chamber last episode. Dying isn't so bad anymore, as long as my gear doesn't fall into lava. Getting it back is relatively simple. The world spawn isn't far from my trade hall, and at the trade hall there are a handful of ender chests I could use to access an elytra and rockets to fly back to the point my previous self lost his life. After spending a lot of time enchanted by speed boost 2, regular running felt dirt slow. Is this the speed I'd always been running at? Disgusting. The outline by this point was almost done. It was cool to be able to see all of the previous layers below, all of the work that had gone into getting this high up. It was certainly going to be a cactus farm on a different level. I'd been making a point of lighting the layers up as I went because there was no way I was going to keep stopping every night to sleep, and no way I was going to jeopardize building momentum by allowing mobs to spawn when it got dark. Another time skip, I didn't see any point in showing the final layers being built, again because of storage space. So here we are, at the tippy top of the tip top of the farm. It's a great view. The outline for not only the farm itself, but for each of the 3,000 cactus cells it consists of is complete. That took way longer than I thought it would. I knew it was going to take a long time, but it was even more than that. So I'm glad that we used speed boost 2, because who knows how much further we'd have to go if I hadn't have had the beacon set up. Originally I planned to build the entire farm in this one episode, but now it just didn't seem practical. The build is massive and it's only the primary stages of the process. We've still got to fill all of it in with more chiseled stone bricks, place the sand, place the fence blocks, plant the cactus, put in the water buckets, build an adequate collection and storage system under the farm itself, and that's only the farm. Then I want to build a perimeter and decorate the place. There's a lot to do between now and being finished with this place. When it comes to the rest of the chiseled stone bricks, based on how many we got through so far, I'm estimating between 100 to 120 shulkers of chiseled stone bricks are going to be needed. That's a fucking lot. While trying to get a cool shot flying through the interstellar inside of a black hole sort of aesthetic current state of the farm, I didn't slow down in time and died from kinetic energy. But at least I didn't respawn amongst 100 chickens this time. And like last time, because I make a point of placing ender chests throughout the world, I was once again able to access an elytra and rockets fairly easily. Finding the items was more tricky, but using the F3 plus B trick to showcase hitboxes made it doable. Though, I'll be honest, running around inside the cactus farm was a bit disorientating. I would hate to get stuck in the back rooms. As for my gear, it hadn't been a concern. They were never in danger of despawning. Yeah, I sighed with relief when I got them, but no. Not concerned. I hadn't realised how close the cactus farm was to the creeper farm we made in episode 3. The world really is a small place. Well, it's not. A Minecraft world is actually massive, but I just guess I didn't travel as far as I thought to build the creeper farm, but then I was on foot at the time. Switching perspectives, looking at the cactus farm from the creeper farm, it doesn't look as impressive because only the edges are rendering in. From here, you could tell me it was an office building and I believe you. At a closer view, it's back to looking impressive. I was starting to sweat for a minute thinking I'd put in all that work and it didn't look impressive. Nah, not having that. I will showcase it in a way that makes it look great. You can see how small the single tower we built up to begin with looks in comparison to how it did before. For a better scale of how large it is, you can see the desert village and beacons and how small they are relatively. It looks like a model village rather than a real one, but this is what you've got to do if you want high performance. Am I right? Don't answer that, just say yes, or at least nod your head. Okay, I'm just going to trust that you did that. Bringing the village back into the conversation, it must really be surreal for the villagers. Look, here's the POV of one. Here I am, a villager, enjoying my life in a house with empty barrels and no bed, just what I want. The sun is shining, I want to get some fresh air. And where in the space did this monstrosity come from? Of course, it's not a monstrosity, but I imagine they're not impressed as they should be. It reminds me of a family cruise I went on to Norway. The ship was massive and dwarfed some of the small towns we rocked up at. For them, the boat literally blotted out the view of everything. Not that their disapproval would make me tear down the farm, apologise for the inconvenience and move it to somewhere else. No, commerce is king in these parts. And that's it for this episode. If you want to get more content in the form of exclusive episodes, then become a member. I'm going to try and figure out how to get world downloads onto there as well. For now, that's it. Alright, bye. Of the large cave. There's a skeleton just over there. I mean, just from the looks of the cave and where all the other caves have been connected, this looks like it's like one end. Okay, I'm going to stay far back. If I can just slowly light this cave up, you know, edge into it slowly, little by little over time, we will take over this cave, because now this area should be spawn proof. Oh, I've done it again.